Hey guys, Dirt here. Welcome back. Today on the Pop Culture Network, we're going to be talking about one of the newest releases from Timeless Media. It is the box set of I Spy, the complete series. Now, this DVD release is set to come out soon, and it contains all 3 seasons of the classic I Spy TV series on 18 different DVDs. You got 82 episodes, which clocks in about 68 hours. So you're going to get plenty to watch if you buy this set. Let's talk a little bit first about the show. I Spy came along in the late 60s as part of the spy craze, following all the James Bond hoopla. You saw a bunch of shows like Man from U.N.C.L.E. and Get Smart, and I Spy was one of the shows that came along, except this one was originally meant to be much more of a gritty and dark and very realistic take on the spy business. Now, Robert Culp played a tennis player, and Bill Cosby, in his first starring role, was his tennis instructor. But they were actually employees of the government, they were spies, and they were traveling around the world to conduct espionage and smuggle people across the Iron Curtain and do some assassinations. And the show at times can get very dark, can get very deep. In fact, Bill Cosby's character of Alexander Scott in one of the episodes is recovering from a suicide attempt because of the stress that comes from the job. So this was a very deep show. This was not meant to be a comedy when it was originally put together. However, Bob Culp and Bill Cosby became very good friends, and a lot of times when they were filming, they would begin to improvise dialogue, and they would just riff off of each other for a while and goof around and make stuff up. And the producers just thought, this is great, and so they left it in the show. So what you end up with is a show that at many times it's lighthearted, it's funny, and at many times it's very dark and very deep and very realistic. So it's a very unique show in the spy genre. One of the other things is that they never had goofy 007 gadgets. They never had a watch that shot lasers or pens that would shoot out cargo nets or anything weird like that. They were just straight up guys who would punch people in the back alley or shoot them in a taxi cab. And that's what happened quite a lot in the show. And the show was controversial because at the time there had never been a black leading man in a TV series before. And they cast Bill Cosby in this role, and people really didn't know what to make about it. And Bill Cosby and Robert Culp decided together that they were going to attack this controversy head on by never talking about it. The best way they thought to defeat any of this so-called controversy was to just never bring it up, never acknowledge it. Just basically, Bill Cosby's black, he's an actor, he's on the show, who cares, move on. And that actually seemed to work in its favor over the long run. Despite some early protests and a lot of stations in some of the not-so-nice areas of the United States didn't want to play the show, but as time went on, it found its own unique voice and niche, and the controversy basically went away because they just refused to give into it. So you have to give the series some credit for that. And you also have to keep in mind when you're watching the show that it is a product of the times. Coming out in the late 60s, they tended to use a lot of language that we don't use anymore when talking about different ethnic stereotypes. Women were not treated all that well, but you got to kind of take that with a grain of salt. I mean, this is about 50 years old that this TV show was on, so things have changed a little bit, and if that's going to bother you, then you probably shouldn't be watching the show in the first place. Now, the show is great, and for those of you wondering, hey, you're 19 years old, maybe you're 23 years old, and you're thinking, I love the James Bond movies, those are pretty cool, am I going to like this show? If you like the original James Bond movies, then yeah, you probably will. If you like the newer ones, then you're probably not going to get in liking the show as much as a lot of other people, and here's one of the main reasons why. The show has a very unique pacing style. A lot of times it can be very slow. A lot of times it's about taking in the scenery and taking in their surroundings. There are times when there's not a lot of dialogue and it's all visual because of the medium of television coming into its own and full color and beautiful locations. So you have to be able to appreciate that aspect of it, otherwise you're going to hate it. One of the other key things about this show is that they would film on location all the exteriors. So when they were going to be in Hong Kong, for instance, they actually went to Hong Kong. The writers would come up with a whole bunch of different ideas for what they could do in Hong Kong. So they would go to Hong Kong, they would go to Greece, they would go to San Francisco, they would go wherever, and they would film a whole bunch of exterior shots at once outside, and then they would go to these sound studios, do the back alley stuff, do the interior shots, and then blend them together. So when you're watching the show and they're in Hong Kong and they actually walk out on the street, out of a nightclub or something, they're actually on a street in Hong Kong, which was bewildering to people back in those days. So some of that stuff you have to kind of keep in mind if you're going to watch the show. Overall, I do enjoy the show. It's one of those classic shows that I like. But you have to keep in mind it was on the same time as the original Adam West Batman show. So that's the era that you're dealing with of television. Now, as far as this release goes, finding I Spy on DVD is actually very difficult nowadays. You can go on Amazon and find the different seasons, but depending on what quality and condition they're in, who you're buying them from, and how much you're willing to pay in shipping, to get all 3 seasons, you're going to pay anywhere from about $150 to $400, depending on which versions you are actually going to buy. This is the 3rd time it's come out on DVD, and the first time the episodes were just released 4 at a time onto discs randomly from the seasons. They released all of them, but they were all jumbled up in no real order. They released it a second time, a season at a time. And when they did that, they actually had Robert Culp come in, and he did some commentary on a bunch of the episodes, gave you a bunch of background information, told you about, you know what commentary is like. Well, anyway, that commentary did not make it onto these, which is one of the biggest disappointments I have with this box set. That special bonus material exists, and it's out there, and they didn't get it to put it on here. This is straight up just the episodes of the show. There are no trailers, there are no commercials, there's no radio spots, there's no reproductions of print ads. And none of that bonus material is to be found anywhere on here. You just get every episode in the broadcast order, collected together in one box set for the very first time. So, you give some, you lose some. There is one bonus thing that is included in this set. If you open up the first disc, or the first case, there is a collector's booklet. Now, this collector's booklet has some interesting artwork reproduced. It's got some on-location photos. It's got an introduction that tells you about the show, about some of the neat things that were happening, going on with it. So if you want some history about it, you can find it there. There's also a rundown of every episode. So if you're looking for a specific episode and you don't really remember what season it was or who was in it or anything like that, you can flip through this little booklet and you can find it listed in there. Some of the background photos are great. Some of them are just there, it's production material. So any bonus material that you were hoping to find on the discs isn't there, but you at least have this little guy tucked in there to give you some bonus material. As for the discs themselves, they come in these standard DVD, cases. The artwork on the inside is actually a reversible art, so it is printed on the inside in the clear case. So if you want to see some character portraits or things of that nature, they do have those back behind the discs. The discs themselves, they will list season 1, season 2, season 3, disc 1, disc 2, disc 3, and so on and so forth. Unlike some of the other releases that Timeless has done where they've kind of forgotten about mentioning on there what order they are or what the episodes are, they did a good job of putting all of that here on the disc, which is very nice, especially when you have 18 of them and you're trying to keep them in order and watching through them. One of my biggest hang-ups, and you guys all know this from watching my reviews, is that I love closed captions and or subtitles. Unfortunately, this has neither. You're not going to be able to turn on the closed captioning on your TV and read captions. You're not going to be able to turn on subtitles on your player and get subtitles. There is none of that on here. So that's an issue. I'm an old man. I like watching my subtitles so I can understand what the folks are saying on the Magic TV screen. And without that, I get a little upset. As far as the transfers go, Originally, this show was recorded in mono. What they've done here is they've taken the mono track and duplicated it for stereo. So you do have stereo left and right, but it's the same channel just duplicated on both. But, I mean, at least they were able to do that. There's no other sound really for them to put in. They can't make it surround sound when it wasn't recorded with any of that in mind. The picture transfer is pretty much a straight transfer. Nothing's really been cleaned up. Nothing that was out of focus in the original has been brought into focus, which you will see sometimes on those exterior shots. Some of it does get a little out of focus, and they left it. This is a straight transfer. You get little hairs, you get little specks of dust, you get things like that from time to time. Usually it's not that bad. I noticed on one episode in season 3, there was a giant hair going across Robert Culp's forehead in the opening credits. It was very distracting, drove me nuts. There's another episode where they're fighting, and while they're tumbling around, there's a couple streaks coming down on the frame. So you do have to keep all of this in mind, that it is not a remastered edition or anything like that. This is a straight up collection on DVD. So, on the one hand, if you're looking for the entire series, you're looking for all 68 plus hours of I Spy, you can get it here. And this collection is aesthetically pleasing in the way it's put together. The slipcase box is actually very thick. It's strong. It's going to protect all this stuff for a while. The cases are well designed. Their graphic design department did a great job. Everything looks really good on it. So as far as that goes, if you're a fan of the show and you want to collect them and you haven't owned them before, then this is a great way to get your hands on them. If you own the earlier releases, I would only suggest you buy this one only if you had purchased the original releases where they were 4 to a disc released randomly and they're not in order. This is a much better way to have your collection together, to have them all in one nice little compact package, to have them in broadcast order. It's much easier to keep track of, sort them, and watch them that way. But if you own the previous release that has the Robert Culp commentary, you're probably better off holding on to that one. So, again, you win some, you lose some, you give some, you take some. In the end, it's going to be up to you whether or not you decide you really want to buy this. I love this show. I love shows from this era. I love Bill Cosby and Robert Culp and the way they riff off each other a lot of times. I love the locations. I love all of that stuff. I'm a nerd for that type of stuff with the history of TV. So I definitely love having this. It definitely is going to be a key part of my television collection. So as far as that goes, I love having this, but it's up to you whether or not you collected those earlier ones and you want to replace them or not. I would hold on to those Robert Culp interview, behind the scenes commentary stuff for a long time, though. I wouldn't get rid of those just quite yet. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for me. Thanks for watching. And I want to say thanks to Timeless Media Group for sending us this copy for review. Don't forget to head over to popculturenetwork.com. Check out more reviews. We have comic books, video games, toys, that type of awesome stuff. You can also go to jointheforums.com, the official forums of the Pop Culture Network. Talk to other fans of all that great nerd stuff, geek culture that we follow. You can find me on Twitter at @PCN_dirt if you want to ask me any questions, any follow-ups. If you've got any particular issues or questions about this box set you want to ask me, I can answer them there. Or you can call our 24-hour voicemail line. It's area code 217-953-4025. You can leave a voicemail message up to 10 minutes long. Although, try not to go more than like 2 or 3, otherwise I lose interest. But anyway, guys, that's going to do it. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you